Nintendo could lower their prices, and here's why. What's that? What the f***? It's another week in video games, and you know what that means? It's another reason to be angry about something, and once again, Nintendo is back in the spotlight. Last week, we did the Nintendo Direct video. If you want to watch that, please check it out along with my live reactions. But that seems to be the focus right now of everyone's ire. Once again, Nintendo just is always dodging, and we even people being mad, all these people on the internet, do they actually matter? Is it just a micro niche that's angry? It's hard to say, but once again, Nintendo under the spotlight for this most recent Direct. And really, Nintendo's, the rage at Nintendo has been going on really since even before the Switch 2 came out, which of course people have been mad at Nintendo for various reasons over the years, but that's when things really started to kick off when it came to the pricing. So Nintendo Switch 2 announced at $450. Of course, there's also the bundle for $500 that included Mario Kart World. And on the surface, I personally don't feel like that sounds too bad. Switch 2, pretty big upgrade, especially if you look at the pricing of modern PC handhelds is really the only other alternative. $450, I'm not saying it's cheap, I'm just saying I don't think it's that bad. But where people really got mad is the price of Mario Kart World. Now, the bundle, it's a $50 additional charge to the bundle, you get it for $500. But if you get it on its own, it was announced that it will cost $80. And this is the first game to break past that $70 barrier. It was a big deal in 2020 at the turnover of the PS4 to the PS5 generation, games becoming $70. Here we are 5 years later, and is there another $10 increase? But it wasn't just that either. It was the price of the Pro controller for $90, the Joy-Cons being $100, and that camera accessory being $55 with really not a lot of utility. I mean, they really tried to sell people on the game share, and I'm sure there's some people out there enjoying it. Personally, not something I really need, but yeah, $55 for that camera. A little steep for what you're getting. The most devastating thing to me personally during those early Switch 2 days was the increase in the price of Amiibo. I remember when Amiibo came out back in my day. I remember in 2014 when the price was $12.99. And yeah, of course, I mean, 2014 was over 10 years ago at this point, but since then, man, the price on these things has just gotten out of control. I love Amiibo. I'm one of those guys that was like, I'm just going to start with this Link Amiibo, this P stain or whatever this block is, this P block Link Amiibo. I'm going to start with that. And then, you're around and maybe I'll get this one too. And now, look at me now. Look at me. Look at this face. Do you think my mom's proud of this face and this? At some point, I don't honestly remember when, Amiibos went up to, I said Amiibos, not Amiibo. I feel that comment. I feel it. Amiibo went up to $20, and it's like, we're starting to kind of get to that line of the value proposition. Is it there? Probably not even to begin with. But if you're a fan of fun little toys, then maybe. But at $20, it was like, ooh, ouch, maybe we're going to start being a little more selective. And then now with the Switch 2, the standard size Amiibo are now $30, up an additional 10, and I believe this came from when there was that weird period where they didn't know how much the Switch 2 was going to cost due to some of the tariff situation going on in the United States. And then it was announced the Switch 2 console itself wouldn't be going up, but the accessories would be, and Amiibo took the hit. There were some other little things too, like you need a newer memory card that's faster, that costs more, and some people were complaining about that, but that was nonsense. I mean, the faster card is clearly superior. It makes sense. It's not really a big deal. So, but since then, what's been interesting is that Mario Kart World has been, in theory, the only $80 game. Since then, we've got Donkey Kong Bonanza at $70, other games at $70. And it really hasn't been like a huge on-off switch for Nintendo to switch to that $80 price point. But they have snuck in other ways to get your cash. Trust me on those games. We'll get into that in a minute. So as I said earlier, the Switch 2 price of the console itself, I really don't feel like is that bad. And the bundle, you get Mario Kart World for $50 instead. I mean, that's just kind of a no-brainer. I would say that most people buying a Switch 2 wanted to play that game. That was the marquee game that everyone would want. And so, yeah, the $80 for Mario Kart World, I mean, it was a big question. It's like, are other game companies going to follow suit with an $80 game? So far, nobody quite yet. I mean, GTA 6 is still on the horizon, so who knows? But as it stands right now, Nintendo has not announced any further $80 games. And I wonder kind of at this point, and this is like big conspiracy brain stuff, but I wonder if that $80 price point was really to just try to push as many people as they could to get that bundle, to get that $500 price point out of everybody. Who knows? We'll have to see on that. And when we were in that period between where the Switch 2 launch price was announced and before it came out, there was a lot of complaining on the internet during anything Nintendo did, whether it was tweets or I think they had some kind of live stream for something. There was all these comments, lower the price, lower the price. Nintendo did not budge on this at the time, and I don't think they were really worried, and really they had no right to be, because when the Switch 2 finally came out, it quickly became maybe the fastest selling console of all time, or at least pretty damn close to it. I don't remember exactly what the stats were, but it sold a whole lot of units, and the pricing really didn't matter to people, even in this time of kind of economic uncertainty. I guess, and to be clear, before we keep going, it wasn't just the Switch 2 that people began to think that Nintendo was a bit scummy with their business practices. This has kind of been going on for a while, but I think Switch 2 kind of, with the increased prices and all, the economic stuff going on, this is where people really started to get upset. And that leads us to now. Just last week, we had the famous Nintendo Direct, the September Direct, where we got all kinds of new announcements, and it was pretty interesting, pretty good Direct. But for a lot of people, I feel like maybe the honeymoon is over, and they've got, they got Mario Kart, they got Donkey Kong. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. I think most people did like those games, but now they're kind of wondering what's next. And so once again, people on the internet loudly complaining about some of the prices of these products. Let's talk about these. They were in my last video, but I think it's worth going over in a little more detail. So I have 5 points here from the most recent Nintendo Direct that people find a little bit egregious. First of all, the Mario Galaxy Collection. This is a $70 Switch 1 game. It will have a Switch 2 update to run it a little bit nicer. But you're getting 2 Wii games for $70, or you can buy them individually for $40 each. And some people have contention with this just because these are older games. One of them, Mario Galaxy, a lot of people bought for the Switch 1 in the Mario 3D All-Stars collection, which, by the way, the fact that they made that limited time release, that's one of those previous scummy incidents that Nintendo has done. For my job at Last Stand, I was editing the Punching Up episode that just came out about this, and I think Gene made a really good point in that when you buy a 4K movie, like if you want to buy a 4K version of Pulp Fiction or something like that, that's one that I watched recently, it's not going to be bargain bin DVD price. You're paying for the upscaling. They rescanned it. They maybe touch it up. You're getting it in 4K. So why would video games be any different? And I can kind of understand a lot of people's perspective where it's like, if you have a nice PC, the game, your copy of Half-Life 2 that you bought decades ago, you can run it, and you can run it in much higher frame rates, higher resolution. So I can kind of understand where some of that thinking is coming from, but Nintendo is laying out some of the additional features, some of the additional work that they've done. And so I think that the pricing, I can see people being a little upset with, maybe a little too close to the last re-release of Mario Galaxy. But I think there is work being done here to modernize, to bring it up. Apparently, the Switch, when it's played on Switch 2, it is going to run at 4K 60. And that sounds pretty dang good to me. If you have Mario Galaxy 1 on the 3D All-Stars collection, you still have that. Nintendo didn't take that away from you, and it's still perfectly playable on both Switch 1 or Switch 2. And so you could just buy the $40 Galaxy 2 if you wanted. When I made this list, I also pointed out the Mario Brothers Wonder Switch 2 edition. And I think we can kind of sum this up into all of the Switch 2 editions that have come out so far, which have been $20 price point in order to run the game at higher fidelity, higher frame rate, along with some quality of life or DLC. Most recently, the Kirby Switch 2 edition came out. It has a bunch of remix levels. It runs the game much nicer. $20 for that. This one's probably the weakest point because we really don't know a ton about the Mario Brothers Wonder Switch 2 update. Is it going to be just these multiplayer levels? It seems like they tease something more, so jury's out. But just in general, the $20 Switch 2 upgrades, some people not so happy about. The craziest announcement of the show, of course, was this Virtual Boy Nintendo Switch Online games that you can play. But here's the kicker. First of all, there's the $100, I don't want to say real Virtual Boy, but you know what I mean. It's the shell that looks like it. It's the same dimensions, and you put your Switch in, or you can get the cardboard version. I want to say that cardboard one is $30, and the actual Virtual Boy one is $100. And so what's weird about this one is just that, first of all, it's Virtual Boy. Second, the fact that you cannot play these games unless you buy one of these accessories. I don't have a lot of experience with Virtual Boy to know if these games could run in 2D. I assume they could because I've seen people like emulate them, stuff like that. Obviously not going to be quite the same experience if that's what you're really looking for from Virtual Boy games. But yeah, $100 for that, for basically a shell with some lenses. Could be a bit steep. The one that I've been following pretty closely is the $20 Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC, and this is a new level which apparently doesn't have new bananas in it. It's the Donkey Kong Island, and obviously very nostalgic for a lot of people that have been into the Donkey Kong series, along with this new roguelike mode that looks pretty cool. I personally haven't played it myself yet, but I have seen enough tweets saying like, yeah, $20 for this? This really not quite worth it. And then earlier I mentioned my love of Amiibo, and there was a slew of new Amiibo announcements, which would be very exciting to someone like me, but the pricing is a bit excessive. So we got the Mario Galaxy ones. These ones are the new standard $30 each. And then we got these Metroid ones, which are smaller ones are $30. And then the one with the bike is $40. You are getting, I guess, a bigger Amiibo at $40 still. Then we got these new Kirby Amiibo, and they look kind of interesting. They have this swappable feature where you can switch the character on each vehicle. Pretty interesting, but $50 a piece for these. $50. So yeah, for me personally, I cannot stomach these Amiibo really anymore. Like, I would love to get the Metroid Prime ones, but nah, I can't do it. These Kirby ones, like, whatever. I think it's a neat feature, a neat idea. I'm curious to see like how valuable it is in terms of gameplay. But even then, I'm not sure that the figures from themselves, if you just want to like display them, are really that great. I did break though. I broke on the Mario Galaxy one just because I'm such a big fan. But it is a big difference from when they were cheaper, where I would maybe pick up both of them. I would maybe pick up the Rosalina one. I would maybe pick up some of these Metroid one. But now with this pricing, it's like, I just can't do it. And that leads me to the hot take of this video, and probably the unpopular take, but you guys can let me know what you think, of course. And the cold hard truth about this pricing is that Nintendo does it because we let them do it. Nintendo right now is basically on top of the world. They've got movies, they've got theme parks, they have an insanely successful system, along with many successful IPs. And people tend to really like them. They really like these IPs. They really like the games. They really like the system. The desirability, is that a word? The desirability, the level of desire for these products is so high that Nintendo knows that you're going to buy it, and I'm going to buy it often, maybe not every case, but often, and that our susceptibility to that price going up has not been met quite yet. And I think the thing is that if we collectively stopped paying for some of these things, Nintendo would be forced to reconsider what their pricing is. And what's interesting is that there are many examples of this happening, like very specifically. I think most famously is the Nintendo 3DS. So Nintendo 3DS came out at $249.99 in the US, And in just 5 months, because of the poor sales, they had to lower the price to $169.99, which is kind of crazy. Think 5 months and immediately getting that level of price drop. And Nintendo, of course, tried to make it right with the people, the early adopters. There was the 3DS Ambassador program, which granted you like some virtual console games and stuff like that. It's not unprecedented for Nintendo to go and lower a price when something isn't doing well. But that's not the only example. I mean, these are further back, but the GameCube launched at $199 in the US, and a year later was cut to $149. And then another year later, slashed to $99. A 50% reduction in price. It's almost unfathomable now to think about how different times are and how console prices work. Nintendo 64 launched at $199, within a year $149. Wii U $349, then lowered to $299. And the reason they did this, simply because just people were not buying them as much as they would like. The desire level for these products was not high enough for what they were charging. So who's to blame? I guess you could start by blaming me. I just admitted a minute or two ago that I bought one of the new Amiibo. I also bought the Donkey Kong Amiibo. I bought a Switch 2 with the Mario Kart World bundle. So yeah, the desire level was there for me. But I could totally understand why it wouldn't be there for you. Everyone's going to have that line of like, is something worth it? And I guess the other aspect too is just not only maybe your desire level's there, but maybe your finances aren't there. And that's totally understandable. It's unfortunate, but just a reality of the situation. So I said at the top of the video, Nintendo could lower these prices. And based on history, I think they absolutely could. But they are just not going to do it right now when Switch is selling so well. Switch 2 is just going crazy. This Mario Galaxy collection, which maybe to a lot of people feels like the most egregious offense, we'll have to wait and see. But from all where it stands right now, with a tie-in movie, is going to do just fine. That $70 price point, not going to affect them at all. So yeah, in a lot of ways, Nintendo has us. I mean, and like I said, I want to make sure people know I'm also at the center of this. Nintendo has us by the balls. They got me with the Mario Amiibo. And I guess maybe if these prices weren't like this, then maybe they would have got me for a few more. Maybe other people quite aren't there yet. And I wonder with these new Amiibo, maybe they have kind of hit the line. I've seen a few examples of the Street Fighter Amiibo from launch already being slashed in prices. So maybe, but for these mainline Nintendo first-party characters, they probably haven't. And it's unfortunate because I would like to have them all, but I can't do it. So I guess it's kind of a bummer way to end this video, basically saying like, yeah, Nintendo is going to continue to charge as much as possible, but I think that's just the reality we're in until they start releasing stuff that's either too high that people are going to say no, or the sales just aren't there. I guess that's the same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't even mention earlier how they raised the price of the Switch 1, which is just crazy. We'll have to wait and see how the Nintendo-flation will affect the rest of the industry. Right now, things seem to be going pretty steady with the $70 games. GTA 6 could blow that up, but it's kind of a different beast if you ask me. So I think that's it for this video. If you liked it, hit me with a like. If you didn't like it, you can downvote it. That's fine too. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Has Nintendo gone too far? Have they hit your line where you're no longer buying, or are you going to continue to be grabbed by the balls like me? Thanks. I appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. Also, if you don't mind, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. I'm starting streaming on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. EST right here on YouTube or on Twitch. So if you'd like to join me over there, that'd be great too. Until next time. See you guys later.